giving energy towards undesirable things versus painting a picture of something amazing and giving energy towards that. When you see a man with no legs, one arm get up on stage and all the things that he've accomplished, your brain goes, okay, if he can do it, I can do it. And I was the 12th baby in medical history that they've ever seen this happen to. I didn't know how powerful my story was until someone reflected it back to me. The only reason why I'm at this level at 27 is because
You're 27?
Yeah.
Wow.
What if the meaning that you gave problems was that this was the sign from my creator that I was moving in the right direction?
You don't know what God was protecting you from. Adversity is just redirection.
The law of wisdom states if you approach everything in life to gain a lesson or to gain a gift, you never lose. That's the way the game is designed. They want you lazy, they want you sleeping, so you can just fall in line with the rest of them. Pick up the paintbrush of life and start drawing on the canvas and say, like, what do I want my life to look like eventually? If we can get more men tapped into their heart, they will experience a level of intelligence and wisdom that they'd never experienced before because the heart knows it all.
Hello, my wonderful listeners, and welcome to this week's CATAMANIA episode. I normally try not to guarantee things, because I've been trained to not guarantee certain results unless I am 100% sure that somebody else can achieve them. But today, I can with great confidence 100% guarantee you that after meeting the guest that I have with me, you will throw away all the excuses that you have been making, and you will actually start moving towards your goals and taking steps. Literally 100% guarantee. So without further ado, I would like you to meet my guest, Mr. Nick Santonastasso.
That was
I
perfect.
pronounced that. Okay. Amazing.
Perfect.
And yeah, welcome, Nick.
Thank you so much. The pressure's on now. The guarantee is here.
I know that you will deliver. I know it for sure.
Thank you for having me.
Here. Yeah, I'm so happy to have you here. I mentioned to you before, it was Unleash the Power Within with Tony Robbins in 2021. And I saw you there, your segment, and it was hands down the most the whole event is great, but your segment was the most memorable one. And that's exactly what happened after. All the excuses that I have been making that I didn't realize were excuses went out of the window, and I was like, wow, that's it. It was super motivational.
Thank you.
And inspirational. And yeah, I'm really glad that you decided to share your story with the world, and you continue to share it, and you continue to motivate people. I think that's incredibly valuable. You could have not, you could have decided not to do it. So if you don't mind sharing, what motivated you to actually step out and share your message and do it, a little bit of your story.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think at this point in my life, I think it's selfish for you to hold your wisdom and your traumas and the things that you've healed with yourself. I think if you help enough people get what they want, you can have anything that you want in life. And so I am an offering. I feel like this human experience is for me, but it's mostly for the people that I can serve. And I take all of my knowledge and my wisdoms and my specific situation and give it to the world so I can help them. I didn't know that was the most impactful segment that you saw. So a little good soundbite that we can get of that being really transformational for you.
My husband will said the same thing. He's just over there on the call.
Yeah, and I think it's because you saw evidence of something that you've never seen before, and so oftentimes I think our model of the world is really cultivated behind what we've seen is possible and what we've seen is not possible. And when you see a man with no legs, one arm get up on stage and all the things that he've accomplished, your brain goes, okay, if he can do it, I can do it. Mm-hmm. So there's a piece of evidence there, right? But to a little background and context on my story, I was born with no legs and one arm, and I was the 12th baby in medical history that they've ever seen this happen to. And out of the 12, 8 of those babies passed away due to undeveloped organs. And so they gave me about a 30% chance to live. Clearly, I survived, and the only thing that was affected were my limbs, so born with no legs and one arm. And I didn't always want to share my story. I didn't know I was different until I got into middle school and high school. And middle school and high school are very judgmental times of our lives. And I realized I was different. I realized maybe the girls didn't like me the way they like my friends. There was a lot of beliefs, a lot of victim mentality. And it wasn't until I would say I was 19 years old where the app Vine came out. Do you remember Vine? So Vine was an app where you could post 6-second videos.
In Soviet Russia, we didn't. No, just kidding.
Oh.
It wasn't even Soviet Russia probably by then, but still, yeah. No.
It was like older TikTok, like the
Okay.
first TikTok, right?
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And I posted some funny videos of me dressing up as a zombie and scaring people, and I was a prankster, and I saw the impact that it made, and I was like, okay, I think there's something here. You know, people see me happy and smiling, and then they realize like, wow, I could be a lot more happy and confident in my body, even if I have all my arms and all my legs. Like, what am I complaining about? And so I knew there was something there, but I didn't know exactly what I was doing. And from there, I started bodybuilding. And when I told the world, like, I'm going to become a bodybuilder, and they're like, you have no legs. And I'm like, most bodybuilders skip leg day anyway, you know, I'll fit right in. And so I started bodybuilding and started marketing myself that way. But I think all of this stemmed from me feeling not enough. Like, if I'm going to be fully honest and fully transparent, most of my success came from me burying my inner child, because I never felt enough. And so I was like, if I could build something really big and I can have big following and I can make a bunch of money, then they'll love me, you know? And I was doing all of it for external validation. And so I think a lot of successful people can relate is their success was created based on trying to heal something or trying to bury something in the past. And so for me, I went from prankster to bodybuilder to then speaking. And the way that I got into speaking was I ran into a crazy Russian that you just met. But I ran into a mastermind group. It was about 8 people at a house, and everybody was sharing their story. I just moved from New Jersey to Tampa to pursue bodybuilding. And I shared my story, and there was a man to my left that I'd never met in my life before, and he said, you're going to be on stage with Tony Robbins one day. And I said, who's Tony Robbins? You know, I had no idea. Remember, I wasn't exposed to any of this. I came from my parents' middle class, worked regular jobs. No one in my family was an entrepreneur. I wasn't exposed to this type of stuff. And I was like, who's Tony Robbins? And he's like, well, he's like the greatest speaker in the world, you know? And I was like, I don't know who he is. And he was like, I'm going to work for you for free. He's like, I love your story. I love your message. I feel like you can take over the world. I will work for you for free. And if one day you like the work we do, maybe one day we'll start a company together. And that was the defining moment where someone saw a gift in me that I didn't see in myself. And fast forward almost 7 years later, we've traveled the world with Tony Robbins. We serve thousands and thousands of people all over the world, students, mentorships, masterminds. But I didn't know how powerful my story was until someone reflected it back to me. And I think oftentimes, regardless of what level you're at, what income level you're at, what status you're at, we tend to have like imposter syndrome. Who's going to listen to me? What am I going to say? Is my story really valuable? But what's really amazing about sharing your story is that speaking is just like music. It's opinionated, right? There's people that like Drake and there's people that don't like Drake. There's people that like Kelly Clarkson and there's people that don't like Kelly Clarkson. So as a speaker and as you sharing your story, understanding that there's always going to be people that don't like you and there's always going to be people that love you. The most important thing is sharing your story authentically, and your authenticity will be an authentic human filter. It'll filter out the type of people that like you, and it'll filter out the type of people that don't like you. And so for anyone listening right now that may be like, is my story powerful? Is it good enough? Should I share my story? There is a little girl or a little boy out there suffering because they haven't met you yet. And every single day that you hold your story to yourself and you hold your knowledge to yourself, you are doing yourself and those people out there a disservice. It's selfish of you. And so at this point in my life, I'm just like, how can I give more to the world before I go?
So you think, would you say you think of, when you share your message, you're thinking of others more so than yourself? Like if holding your voice inside of you and not sharing it, it's in a way basically a disservice to the world. And when you are speaking, when you are sharing your message, is it ever about you or is it always about other people? Like, do you ever how do you balance that?
Yeah, that's a great point. I think there's a combination of both. Mm-hmm. I think most of the time we're focused on other people, but what's really beautiful is to witness healing is to receive healing.
Ooh.
And so if I can share a story and someone gets an aha moment or a breakthrough from it, I get to receive that healing as well because I get to witness someone shift. I get to witness someone have a breakthrough, and I get love that way as well, right? And so I get to meet that need of contribution or significance in an empowering way by sharing my story. But also I think healing or speaking is one of the most healing things that you'll do because you really have to be selfless. And if you really want to connect with people on a deeper level, you have to talk about all your secrets, all the things that you don't want to share, all the things that you've been hiding, because people don't relate to a perfect life, right? So oftentimes people get into speaking or sharing their story and they only want to share like the hero stuff. Look at me and I'm amazing and this is great. But when in reality, your best content will be your deepest, darkest things that you're struggling with. And I think the more that you speak the things that you're struggling with, not only do you share it, but as you speak it, you're healing. You get to communicate. It's like journaling, but to the world, right? And so it's scary. It's not for everybody, but for the people that feel called and say like, yo, I think I can, there's something here. I think I can impact people. I think it's one of the most healing things that you could do is just share your story.
What about if you have not problems, but if you have like this fear of public speaking? Did you ever have fear of public speaking?
Yeah, the fear is so silly. We can break this down real quickly too. But fear, like, we have fear of public speaking, we have fear of failure, we have fear of rejected, fear of not being loved. And what fear is caution over a real and present danger. So back when we were cavemen and cavewomen, right, is like the brain was designed to keep you alive from the saber-toothed tiger coming to kill you and your family. Well, it's 2024. None of you have saber-toothed tigers. At least I think if you're watching this.
You have alligators.
Maybe
and
alligators,
crocodiles in Florida.
Right? Yeah, we do have those.
We have bears in Canada.
Right? But we have different fears now. And so fear of public speaking, where that comes from is you anticipating an undesirable outcome. Right? They're going to make fun of me. I'm going to stumble on my words. It's not going to sound right. They're not going to get value. And so you're already, if I don't have feet, right? You're already shooting yourself in the foot, right? Before you even get started because you're giving energy to an undesirable outcome. It's one of the most disempowering patterns of all human beings is giving energy towards undesirable things versus painting a picture of something amazing and giving energy towards that. Does that make sense? Yeah. Right? So the fear of public speaking comes down to you creating a scenario that's not going to happen, but also fear of public speaking. If you have a fear of public speaking, you're more focused on what are they going to think of me versus how can I save someone in the audience.
So you remove that. You have to remove that aspect of like me.
It's not you.
It's not you.
It's not about you, right? Because oftentimes, right, what if I stumble? What if I stutter? Yo, it's not about you no more. It's about the audience. And regardless of whether you stumble, you stutter, you mess up, as long as you spoke from your heart and a message got to the audience, like that's what we're in it for. And so as humans, we're just so obsessed with ourselves. It's like you need to get outside of yourself. And I think also exercising the muscle of overcoming fear is the most liberating thing that you can do. Everybody listening right now has had a moment in their life where they said, wow, I'm really afraid to do this. And then they did it. And on the other side, they said, wow, that wasn't so bad after all. And now you're liberated. You're like, ooh, I want more of that, right? And so if you can keep what you fear the most on the forefront of your brain and attack that thing, you will introduce yourself to a version of yourself you haven't met yet. And I think everybody, fear of public speaking, they'd rather die than public speak. Just go try it out. Just go get messy. Go do it janky, right? But I think everybody has a story. And I can only impact so many people. You can only impact so many people. We're not going to resonate with everybody. And that's the beautiful thing about speaking is you will find your people when you speak in an authentic way. They'll come to you. They'll find you.
And people are afraid of also losing people, right? Because even the friends and stuff like that, which is something that I want to zone into. But before we do, I wanted to share something about fear that I feel like you will really, for lack of a better word, vibe with. I started to rethink of what fear really is. And I kind of defined it for myself as a sign that you're about to step out of your comfort zone. And you know how they say, you know, the quintessential life begins at the end of your comfort zone. But I honestly feel like once I looked at it that way, I'm like, it's actually not, like, it's not that scary. Fear is not that bad, right? Because it's just a sign that I'm about to do something that I've never done before.
Yes.
Or I'm about to do something that is a little bit risky.
Yes.
What's the problem with that? Like, okay, we're about to step into your out of our comfort zone. So thank you and let's go, you know?
I agree. And it goes back right to the meaning we attach to fear itself, right? Is fear a friend or is fear a foe? Fear is a friend when you're a lady and you're walking to your car in a parking garage and your head's on a swivel making sure no one comes up on you and tries to rob you. But fear is not a friend when it's talking you out of going up to that guy or girl. Fear is not a friend when it's talking you out of sharing your story on a podcast, right? And so I love that you've attached that fear is an indicator that growth is about to happen. I'm about to step out of my comfort zone. But most people, when they experience fear, the meaning they give it is like, oh, stop, I should run the other way. But what if it was like, hey, every time I feel fear, I'm going to jump in and I'm going to override my old programming. It's the meaning we attach to it, right?
Yeah, so interesting. Before starting this podcast, somebody told me, like, are you sure? Like, English isn't your first language. And I'm like, so what? You know, like, even if I say something I still say stuff that makes no sense. I have phrases in my vocabulary that my friends noted when I first moved to North America that I said, like, I thought they meant one thing, but they meant something else. The famous one is, I thought that to drop a deuce meant to throw a party, but we won't talk about
Really?
that. Yes.
Nice. I'm going to remember that forever.
Yeah. And then I'm like, so what? Even if you make a mistake, like you move on, you know, it's not the worst thing.
For sure.
Let's talk about friendships and people you surround yourself with, because inevitably when you start doing something that's out of the ordinary or something that you've never done before, you know, sharing your story, sharing your message, people are even not so much often, I feel like, afraid of the people that they will attract to themselves, because they know they'll probably attract the right people if they share their message, stuff like that. But they're afraid of losing people. And we were talking about that earlier with, you know, my husband and Dean behind the camera there. It's kind of scary, like when you start to lose friends or to lose people that you've known your whole life. Have you had that happen? Have people, you know, looked at what you were doing and felt uncomfortable because you were doing something maybe that they wanted to do, but they were allowing fear too much in?
Yeah, absolutely. I think our execution or us taking action towards our dreams makes people feel inadequate who aren't chasing their dreams. Mm-hmm. Right? So they feel uncomfortable because we're doing something that they wanted to do, but they maybe don't have the guts to do or the heart to do, or they don't have the knowledge or the guidance to do. Right? And I think ultimately everything comes back to that filter. If I take action and I pursue my dreams and you get further away from me, that was just a clear indicator from the universe that you weren't supposed to be in my life, the whole book, maybe just for a chapter. Yeah. Right? And so you will attract and repel who's supposed to be there in the season, right? And so I think as you pursue your mission and as you pursue the things that you achieve, you will find your tribe. And I think you will lose people along the way, which is very difficult. But what's more painful for you? Is it staying in the same spot over and over again, or is it pursuing your dreams and having people fall behind, right? And so I think it's a very tricky thing, because there's a few different ideologies about friends and losing friends, right? Some people will say you need to cut people off that aren't aligned with you or don't grow the same as you. And then I also believe that there are a few friends that you need in your life, and maybe one day they'll catch up. Just love them, you know, just keep loving them, right? Unless they're toxic, right? You need to cut them off. But I have a few friends, and if they watch this, they'll know who they are. But I have a few friends that I'm like, hey, I don't have legs, but we're running the race of entrepreneurship, and I'm winning. I am lapping you. But one day you will start running faster, and you'll catch up. And I'm not going to leave you behind. You're someone who I've committed to keeping in my life, and I'm going to give you evidence that winning is possible on all levels, and you will find that you'll find your place. I think everybody has their own timeline and their own journey, and they're on their own mission, and sometimes we just need to have compassion for where they're at. But also, I think the people that leave you, they weren't exposed or didn't have evidence that winning was possible. I don't think that maybe they didn't have the right upbringing or didn't have the right guidance, and so they don't even know how to react. And so I think there's a lot of healing there, a lot of conversation that could be had with them that would allow them to see that they can do it too. But ultimately, I feel like just your action makes people feel inadequate, and some people are going to leave and some people are going to stay. And then you're going to continue to gain more people as you go. But it's tough, right? We love family and we love friends, but oftentimes it's our closest family and friends that don't even understand our vision. They don't understand our goals. They don't understand our mission, and that's okay, right? Like, my mom doesn't need to know why I travel all over the world and why I'm on calls all day and why I close deals and why I help people. She doesn't need to know why. I can educate her on why, but I can also love her and for where she's at and her psychology. I think as well, one of the most powerful things that I've heard is, looking at like our parents or our friends is like, hey, this is your mom's first time at life too.
Yeah, they're here for the first time.
It's the first time,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
It's their
We're
first
all
time,
here for the first time.
right? So like, have compassion,
right?
And ultimately, give people evidence that is possible, and whether they want to ride with you, they ride. Whether they don't, they don't. But like, give people evidence that winning's possible by you pursuing your thing. Like you doing this, doing this show gives other men and women evidence that regardless of what language that you started with, that you can create a show that's successful in a totally different language. Like you give people evidence that it's possible.
Yeah. When do you know? So you mentioned, some people say cut people out or, how do you know who to just stop communicating with, for, lack of a better word, and who, because it sounds like you're making an effort to be like, hey, you know what? I'm going to prove to you that I can do this, and I'm going to pull you up with me, so to speak, right? How do you know who you take with you and who you don't? Are those people also, not to name names, but like, are those people also making an effort to stay in your life, or is that something that's coming more from your side?
Yeah, it's a great question. I believe that love isn't lies, and so you have to be very direct with people and be like, hey, this is what we're working towards, or I want to see some growth in you. If I don't see growth, like I don't think this is an alignment. So being like very direct, but ultimately, I would cut the people off that are toxic. Right? Like when you share your dreams and share your visions, do they like celebrate it or doubt it? Do they talk crap? Like, are they bringing you down? Are they sabotaging you? Right? Like, so you clearly know who's toxic and who's just like struggling, or who's like doesn't have a sense of urgency, or maybe they're lost and they don't have their mission or their purpose. So if people are toxic, I definitely like cut them off. I have a very low, or I have a very high standard of like, hey, if you, like, I don't deal with anything toxic. Like I don't want to complain. I don't want you to complain about your problems. Like there's a very clear indicator that my time is not well spent with you. But on the flip side, I incentivize people. I'm like, hey, like I want to see at least some growth. Like quit the vape, Try to learn a new skill. Like I want to see something, and as long as I know that you're intentional about moving forward, like I'm going to love you because you're making progress. But if you're constantly stagnant or constantly moving backwards, it's probably not in alignment for me. And so that's where I'm at. Even for example, in the house that we live in, I live in a house with my business partner, my other friend, and the whole rule of the house is like we all need high income skill sets. Like you need to be working towards cash flow. You need to be working towards providing value to others. You need to be working towards freedom and breaking out of the matrix, whatever that looks like. But you need to be intentional about acquiring skill and personal development. And then also I will.
That's like a requirement before moving in with Nick.
Right.
Check.
Right. And then also I'll like plant seeds. Like, oh, you should read this book. And like see if they read the book. Like see if they'll take action on it. And if they're really just not taking any action on it, you're like, okay, maybe there's no growth here. So it's a tricky battle. But if people are toxic, they're toxic. You should probably distance yourself and love them from afar. And then there's some that you're just like, I'm going to love you extra hard, and I'm going to keep pouring into you, and I think one day you'll get it.
Yeah, so you see who needs the love and who needs to be pulled out a little bit more.
Yeah.
And then you also see people who are just like, okay, maybe we need to distance from one another. For sure.
But also, I think the biggest thing is, I'm going to take a deep rabbit hole here, but I'm going to, if we're all one, right, we're all one collective consciousness, I'm you, you're me, I would want to have compassion for where you are, because maybe one day I was there, one day I'll be there, right? Like I don't want to judge. I feel like when I judge someone else, I'm judging myself, where everybody's a mirror for you. Right. So if I'm judging you for your lack of accountability, there's been a moment where I'm judging myself for lack of accountability. So I think the big thing is having compassion for where people are at, as long as they're not toxic, like having compassion for where people are at and loving them for where they're at and seeing if you can support them on that journey. But at this point, I believe that I'm you, you are me, and I want to treat you as if I'm talking to myself. And that was a big shift for me, realizing there was a massive unconscious judgmental programming going on. And I realized like every time that I was judging someone who wasn't as far ahead as me in growth, that I was actually judging myself or judging the little boy inside myself. And so I'm getting better at not judging and loving people for where they're at on their journey and their timeline.
Yeah. Wow.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Do you believe that our people that surround us or people that we meet, they're in a way like a mirror of
everybody?
Something? Yeah.
Everybody's a mirror. What an insane human experience that we get to live in. Every single human being is a mirror for you. So what you love about me because it's actually in you. I just remind you that it's there. and what you don't like about me, or what maybe if I trigger you, I'm not saying like me and you, right? But if I trigger you,
FYI, I like everything about you,
right? Because it's in you as well, right? We're mirrors.
Yeah.
And so, but if I were to trigger you, or you're like, I don't like that about Nick, you don't like it because there's a piece of you that does it as well. It's inside you. That's why relationships are extremely complex. Because I always tell people, business is easy. You want a harder game, try to have a harmonious relationship, because your significant other shows you all the parts of yourself that you don't want to see, and you can't escape it, right? And so everybody's a mirror. It's the same thing when I do on stage. Is I'll ask a question on stage, and I'll get someone to stand up and answer the question, and then I'll look in the room and say, how many of you see yourself in her? Show of hands. And all the hands will go up, and I say, why is that? Because she's a mirror for you. Right. We're all brothers and sisters, and we're all mirrors for each other. So understanding that the people that trigger you are actually the greatest people in your life, because they show you what you need to heal.
Is that why it's such a hard pill to swallow for so many people? Like, to realize that what you don't like about that person is actually in you. I had a coworker once when I was working in the corporate world a little while back in Canada, and I heard, I can't remember who it was, maybe it was like Louise Hay or somebody I was listening to, like one of those like motivational, inspirational, self-help books, and she said that, she's like, what you don't like in another person, you actually have in you. And I was like, I felt like that resistance. I was like, no.
Yeah, of course.
She was like my biggest pain point at that time.
Yeah.
And I was like, no way. I have none of that in me. And then it takes work and a lot of feelings that you don't even want to feel them, to reflect and say, actually, you know what? There's like certain moments in my life where maybe I do have those things, those qualities, so to speak.
100%. I think it's very difficult. That's why most people don't heal, because you have to take ownership and be like, okay, I am the problem, right? Like leaders, what leaders do is we take ownership of everything, even if it's not our fault, right? But there's two states that most humans are in, which is, this is a recent learning for me, is you're either in protection or you're in learning. And most humans are in protection. Oh, it's not me.
Right.
Oh, no, I know that already. Like the quick reactive response of when you're trying to coach someone and they're like, no, this, that, or no, I do it this way. I already do that. You notice when someone's in protection, they're deflecting. And by the way, they don't even know they're in protection. It's unconscious. Right. They've been protecting their whole life because they don't want to be exposed, right? But learning is like, if I was like, hey, I think this is a mirror for you. Learning would be like, oh, that's interesting. Let me think about that. Versus totally just denying it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so, but I can only get you into a learning state if I'm in a learning state. But if I'm in protection, if two people are in protection, we're not going to get anywhere. As we're talking, we're going to feel like we're moving further apart from each other. Does that make sense? But the only way that I can get you from protection to learning is loving you so much into learning. Having so much compassion. It's okay. I totally get where you're at. And loving someone from protection to learning. Because ultimately, we're all in like this defense protection mode. And I think it comes from childhood as well, of like trying to be perfect and don't want to be exposed and want to do everything right. And the only way that you can really bring someone to a learning state is just be like, hey, it's okay. We all go through this, and loving someone really deeply until they can get into a state of like, let me try this idea on. Thanks for having compassion and patience with me. But you're going to notice now that I've shared that with you that most people are in protection all around you, and they don't even know it. They're not even willing to try the idea on.
Yeah, they reject it. And they
deflect.
Yeah, even, like, for example, going through Tony Robbins seminars, a lot of times obviously people who take the seminars, they're all more or less on the same page, right? But you will see how differently it affects them, right? Some people will just go straight into, starting a business and they just feel like their life just shifts 180, right? But then others will continue to, most people actually come out of it, the ones that I know at least, with 180. But you see, like, there's very deeply enrooted things that probably you need to go through another session, right? Or you need to maybe do another Unleash the Power Within. It's very interesting how deeply enrooted those things are, and how, you're right, how unconscious we are about them. Like, we don't even know.
100%. Like studies show, if you look at neuroplasticity, by the age of 35, we're 95% unconscious. That means
We're just
our
like walking around
yeah,
asleep.
yeah, you're sleeping all the time in a dream world, right? Like
Yeah.
that means our actions, our words, our emotions, our triggers, the way that we show up in the world is on autopilot, right? And that means only 5% of the brain is conscious trying to make a change. So that's why it's so important to get in rooms like that or have a coach or a mentor, because you can only see what you can see and you can only hear what you can hear. So you need someone outside of your life to be like, hey, I think there's a blind spot there. And you being open and willing to be like, oh, not deflect it, but like, oh, let me go investigate this blind spot. So I agree. It's like an onion, peeling back an onion. Like our healing's never done.
Right.
Our healing's never done. And the very belief that your healing is done is the very belief that's holding you back from the next level of life. The very belief that you think you'd mastered something is the very belief that's holding you back from the next level of life. And so like Tony says, the training never stops, but also information hits at different seasons of your life. I may say something today and it may not resonate, or someone may listen to this podcast today and it may not resonate, and then they replay it 3 months later and they're driving in their car like, oh my God, it makes totally sense. Or, this makes so much sense because they're at a different season, or maybe they're in more of a learning state versus the protection state and they didn't even know, right? So, and I also believe that most humans don't need to be taught, they need to be reminded. You've already been taught so many things, but you just need to be reminded and reinforced over and over again, and maybe it needs to hit. It's the same reason why we can watch a movie once and then a month later watch the same movie and see a totally different scene.
Yeah.
Because we were receiving something, or we were at a different season of our life and we were able to receive something in a different way.
Yeah.
So the healing, sorry friends.
Damn it, Nick.
Sorry, friends.
I thought we were just going to have this conversation and that's it. No.
The healing never stops.
It's like going to the gym, right?
Yeah.
Like when you start working out, you think like, okay, well, I'm going to just like tone my body a little bit, or like, do something to like increase my muscle mass or something. And that's it. Like I'm going to tone it down. I'm not going to go to the gym anymore. And then you realize, hey, it's actually like a lot of work. I need to keep going. I need to keep training. It makes sense, right? It's like a muscle almost.
The question is, do you love yourself enough to keep going? Do you love yourself enough to do the work? Do you love yourself enough to go to the gym more? Do you love yourself enough to do the meditation? Do you love yourself enough to go into the deepest, darkest parts of you and face that person?
How do you love yourself more? I know it's a loaded question.
It's a great question. How do
Just
you
stand in front of a mirror and be like, hey, I love myself. Some people can't even do that. They can't look at themselves in the mirror and tell themselves that they love themselves. Where do you start?
Who taught you not to love yourself? That would be the first question I would ask, right? Where in your life did you pick up that you're not supposed to value and love yourself? Who did you watch? Who did you see? What did your upbringing look like that showed that you should not put yourself first, but maybe put others first? We picked it up along the way, what I'm saying, right? Maybe we saw someone their whole life just not loving themselves, or someone told us something like, you're stupid, you're not worth it, you ask too many questions, sit down, shut up, stop speaking, right? Like, and then we develop these beliefs. And so I would ask the question of, where did I learn this? Who taught me not to love myself? Where did that come from? Who did I witness not loving themselves, right? Because I'm a big believer in asking the right questions to lead people to the right answers. So even everybody listening to this podcast, I am in no way, shape, or form here to give you answers. I'm here to spark specific questions or ideas for you to find your own breakthrough and your own answer, right? But also, the loaded question of how to love yourself is, I would also start with, would you date the person that lives inside your head? And typically when I ask that question, the answer is no. And it's like, okay, well, how do you talk to yourself? The same way you talk to yourself, would you talk to your daughter that way? Would you talk to your husband that way? Would you talk to your mother the way you talk to yourself? Okay, let's start getting curious on why I'm talking that way. Who is that voice? Where did it come from? And the foundation is just awareness. So if you can become aware of all the ways that you're not loving yourself, you can start to shift them and find ways to love yourself, right? Like, read a book, move your body, nurture yourself, go find positive people, go consume positive content, right? But what are all the ways that you can start feeling better about yourself? But I just think we weren't taught this stuff, right? Like, for example, for me, like, I was shown love in two ways: food and money. I didn't know what emotional intimacy was. I didn't know how to have a deep, meaningful conversation. And so I had to teach myself that. And so the truth is, most of you listening to it, maybe you weren't taught how to love yourself, but you need to go learn how to love yourself, and you need to go figure it out so you don't trickle it down to your bloodline. So just to recap, loaded question, right? But how to love yourself is, I would say, start observing the way that you talk to yourself and shifting that. There's something called a pattern interrupt, right? If all of what we do are patterns, we have patterns of being happy, we have patterns of being sad, we have patterns of self-sabotaging, we have patterns of loving ourselves. If you can become conscious of all the patterns of you not loving yourself, and in that moment say, I'm doing it again, how can you shift out in that moment and insert a different action or a different thought that is more empowering? You can start unwiring and rewiring the brain that way. So for example, an example that came up last night is, I got asked, not to like veer off, but I think it just aligns with the question. I got asked by a woman, she said, how does the masculine start to receive love versus deflecting love? And I said, well, first, they have to acknowledge there's a blind spot of receiving love. So you have to have ownership and acknowledge that there's like, oh, I don't love myself, or I have a hard time loving myself. And in the moment when you find yourself self-sabotaging or not loving yourself, how can you in that moment shift and be like, that's not me anymore. Let me go over here and try to do something that is more empowering. So you can interrupt the pattern. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Right? So I think there's a lot of ways, but nurturing your body. Let me go really aggressive here too. If a man with no legs of an arm is in better shape than you, then there's your first wake-up call that you need to start nurturing and loving your body. You only get one of those, and sometimes your creator doesn't give you all the parts that you want. But ultimately, if you want to start loving yourself, nurture the only thing that you have, which is your temple. Body, mind. Start consuming great content because you are what you eat, and start moving your body and nurturing that. And foundationally, like foundation, is start following through in the very things that you say you're going to do. Because most of us make promises and we break them, and we prove to ourselves that we're a liar, and we don't love ourselves anyway. So we say we're going to go to the gym, and then we don't do it. We say we're going to read the book, and then we don't read the book. And when you lie to yourself once, what is it easier to do? Lie over and over and over again. So if you want to have some self-love as well, do what you say you're going to do and celebrate yourself for it. And I think there's a totally different version of yourself on the other side of that.
Hold yourself accountable to the things that you yourself say you want to do.
Yeah, start stacking proof that you are who you say you are by doing the things that you say you're going to do. But most of us have just been lying to ourselves our whole life, and that's why we don't even view ourselves in a empowering way, because we don't even believe ourselves. You've been lying your whole life.
For those of you who are listening to this, and if I know that some of you have messaged me before asking me, how do I hold myself more accountable to my workouts? How do I continue to work out? Just please listen to this episode and to this man. How many days a week do you work out? How do you?
Not enough.
What's
right?
Not enough?
It's a pendulum. It comes and goes, right? So let me break this down real quickly. I built most of my self-worth off my body image of like bodybuilding. So like I got in bodybuilding for the wrong reasons, ladies and gentlemen. I got into bodybuilding. I was like, ladies are going to love me. I'm going to do it for the ladies. I'm going to get shredded just for women. Wasn't sustainable. And I realized that I tied a lot of my self-worth to my body image. And so I wanted to make sure that I didn't tie all of my self-worth to body image. And so I've went up super healthy, and I went down super healthy, and now like I'm getting back into it. But for me, I probably lift 5 days a week, 6 days a week. And even now, right in this moment, on the way here, I hired my best friend to hold me accountable. He was my old bodybuilding coach. And I called him. I was like, bro, I need you. I was like, I need you to hold me accountable again, because I just can't do it on my own. Like, I need you to be in my ear. And so I believe that accountability isn't something that we want, but accountability is something that we need. And it's like the most underrated superpower. So I can hold myself accountable to a certain extent, but I always rather someone in my ear like, hey, did you get your stuff done? This is what we're doing. This is the plan. Let's go execute on it. So 5 days, to answer your question, 5 days a week, 6 days a week. But ultimately, I have non-negotiables. And my non-negotiables are minimum 45 minutes of movement, right? Just get your body moving. I don't care if you walk. I don't care if you sit in your chair and you move your arms. I don't care what you're doing. But there is a superpower in moving your body and changing your physiology every single day, right? Like if you are depressed or you're full of anxiety or you're stressed, with your legs that your creator gave you that he didn't give me. Go for a run and tell me how you feel at the end of the run. Your life will totally be changed. You are not depressed. You're in a state of depression. You're not an anxiety driven person. You're just in a state of anxiety. So when you change your physiology, when you change your state and you go move your body, you're going to be in a totally different emotional state. And if you do it enough, you'll get addicted to those beautiful states, and you'll get out of your suffering state or out of your poopy diaper that you've been in for a very long time.
Isn't it crazy that we've normalized anxiety and depression, but when we tell people that we work out, that we take care of our bodies, that's something that's like, wow, really? It's almost like a surprising thing. But I'm lucky enough to be surrounded by people for whom if I said I have anxiety or depression, the first thing they would do is say, when was the last time you went to the gym, or when was the last time you moved your body? But on a societal level, we've normalized those things, and we don't pay enough attention to what we eat and how much we move.
I'm gonna be a little bit aggressive here.
Please.
That's the way the game is designed.
Yeah.
The game is designed for the mass. They want you fat. They want you weak. They want you lazy. They want you sleeping, right? And so they'll do everything in your power to put things in front of you and put unhealthy things in front of you and get you addicted to that and addicted to this, so you can just fall in line with the rest of them. In addition to that, most of us don't have evidence that happiness is really possible because your whole family's negative. And so we grow up in a specific environment where we see just people working day in and day out in these unconscious routines, not happy, not excited. Most people are overweight, if we're being honest. Like, this is what we see until you go outside of, by the way, America, and you see like there's a whole world out there who has a healthy, happy, fit lifestyle. And so happiness is a fairy tale because people aren't surrounded by people who are happy.
We talked about this earlier today, actually, how, that whole meme, like when I'm in Italy, I eat like carbs every day, drink wine, like smoke cigarettes, and I look really well. And then like I smell bread in America and I get fat.
Yeah.
That whole thing. You have to pick and choose through products here. There's lots of great things here. Don't get me wrong. I like it, but yeah, it's a very interesting thing.
Yeah, it's wild. And so that's what I would say is, if you don't have people in your immediate proximity that are happy and fulfilled, go find mentors or go listen to stuff like this, because like we are evidence that like you can be happy, you can be fulfilled, you can have beautiful relationships, you can have business, you can impact lives. Like, y'all just need evidence. You need to surround yourself with people that are giving you evidence. Right? And making sure that you're learning from people who actually have the life that you want. Like, are you taking business advice from mommy who never had a business? Are you taking health advice from homeboy who's not in shape? Most of you are giving relationship advice and you don't even have a harmonious relationship. Like, what are we doing here? It's backwards, right? So make sure that you're learning from people who have the life and the results that you want, but y'all just need evidence. And the reason why evidence is so powerful is because your brain is the best detective, and it's always going to try to find evidence to prove yourself right. And so if you have evidence that the way life is I work a 9 to 5, nothing wrong with that, right? But I work a 9 to 5, I'm unhealthy, I'm addicted to this, I'm addicted to that. That's just your model of the world. You can't see outside the fishbowl. But once you're surrounded by people, you're like, wow, that guy has no legs and one arm. He's in shape. He has a business. He's independent. He drives a car. I think I could do it. Like, I think I could do maybe 1/10 of what he's doing, but I can do it. He shows me that it's possible. And so we just need proximity and evidence to realize that we can do it. But unfortunately, I just think people are surrounded by average, and so their evidence is like life is average, and that's all I can have.
How do you find these people? So I'll give you an example. I was one of them. Again, nothing wrong with working 9 to 5. I had a really great setup.
Yeah.
We lived in Calgary in Canada. And I would listen to all of these motivational speakers and, all these inspirational things. And I would feel really good. I remember driving to work and listening to all these amazing things, ideas. And then I would get to work. I would sit in my chair and I would go right back to my work.
Yeah.
And you feel this fire inside of you. You're like, okay, there's something happening. Like I need to go out, but you can't do anything because you can't in that moment change your surroundings. Obviously,
Yep.
I'm living a totally different life now, but I took a huge risk. My husband also took a huge risk. If somebody's listening to this right now and they're feeling super motivated and inspired, but they're just, they have a mortgage, they have maybe a family they need to feed, and they're like, okay, well, I can't just drop everything and go. Where do you start? Where do you start to look for those people? Where do you start to even look for steps to take towards their dreams and their goals?
100%. I think before even looking for the people, we have to create a compelling vision for our life, something that really excites us, right? And so the only reason why a man with no legs and an arm can jump out of bed ready to rock and roll is because I have a vision that I'm pursuing, right? And so I think getting quiet and asking yourself, like, pick up the paintbrush of life and start drawing on the canvas and say, like, what do I want my life to look like eventually? Mm-hmm. I want to have this. I want to live here. I want this to be my income. I want to learn this skill set. Like, start thinking about the things that you want to achieve so you know that even in that environment of the 9 to 5, that's a stepping stone because you have a plan that you're building into. You may not be able to work at it all day because of 9 to 5, but on the additional hours, you can start pushing towards this compelling vision. So for me, that's the most important thing, is constantly creating compelling visions that keep me going. Because the truth is, most of the time when you're building or trying to build something, it's not all fun. It's not all sunshine and rainbows. You need something that's going to pull you on the days where you don't want to get out of bed. So that would be the first thing. And I would start getting very clear on what do I want my life to look like? Who do I want to surround myself with? What type of characteristics do I want my mentors to have? And then when you're very clear on those things, you can go find those people that fit that molding. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. But most people don't have a compelling vision for their life. It's like, hey, what are you working towards? Friday? Like, no.
Oh my God, those conversations, I don't miss them even one bit. It's like, how was your weekend? Good. Yours? Good. All right, we'll have a good day.
That's it. Exactly. Exactly. So we forget that we hold the paintbrush of life. And I think there's a lot of inspiration and a lot of momentum that can happen from building that compelling vision and thinking. Like, think about the plan. Write it down.
Right.
And then identify those people that you want to spend more time with. But now these days, like, listen, if you live in a country, let's just put it this way. If you live in a country, whether it's America, Canada, but you live in a country where you're not getting bombed, people aren't killing your family, you're not getting exposed in some sort of way, mm-hmm. Your problems are insignificant compared to the real world of what's actually going on. Like, we're very, very privileged, Amen. Right? And so understanding that, there is really no excuse for you to not create the life that you want to create. You just have to be willing and curious to find the information and to find the right people so you can go further faster, right? But like, we live in this delusional world where we think like our content not performing is a problem, right. Or like me scared to share my story is a problem, or I have to build my business on the side of my 9 to 5 is a problem. It's like, yo, there are kids right now under a desk because bombs are going off and you're complaining about your content. Like, yeah. You're delusional, right? So like, get back at it. And also, your problems or your obstacles are your greatest gifts, because those are the things that are going to catapult you to the next level. You talked about fear, right? And we were like, it depends on the meaning you attach to fear. What if the meaning that you gave problems was that this was the sign from my creator that I was moving in the right direction?
Ooh.
How would you interact with problems? Would you welcome them? Right. Would you love them? Would you be up for them? Because you knew, if I'm in my comfort zone, I don't really have problems. I'm comfy, I'm chilling, I'm watching Netflix, and my check's coming every 2 weeks. Like, there ain't anything. But what if every single time that I experience a problem or a challenge, this was a sign that, like, I'm doing it, something's happening? Because the truth is, disruption follows intention. So anytime that I'm intentional about creating or about being more, disruption will always be there to try to pull me back to my lower self. So if you understand that problems and obstacles are your sign of growth, are your sign of moving in the right direction, you will fall in love with problems more. And you will want them more. You will want more obstacles. You will want more challenges, because it's going to cultivate you into the greater version of self.
Isn't it interesting? Like, I can confidently say that when I look back on my life, and problems that I at that time thought were like, the biggest, greatest, horrific thing that could have happened. I look back and I'm like, wow, actually, it's good that it happened. And I always say, even the trivial things like a flight getting canceled or something like that, we get so frustrated. And I'm like, you don't know I believe in God. You don't know what God was protecting you from or where he was trying to redirect you. Adversity is just redirection.
Yeah.
And obviously it's, easier said than done in most cases. But if you force yourself, like you were talking about patterns, if you establish a pattern of like, no, hold on. This is actually good. The fact that this is happening, there's some greater meaning to this. I don't know it yet, but 2 years from now, 5 years from now, I will look back at this experience and think to myself, you know what? It's actually a good thing that, I have a friend who, she got into an accident on her way to the airport. She was supposed to fly from Alberta, from Edmonton to Houston a couple of years ago. And there was like some big problem with the plane. And like, apparently it was like a big emergency situation. And she was like, hey, thank God I got into a car accident. But in that moment, of course you don't think that way. Thank God I got into a car accident. I was going to say that, but it's just, that's how it works.
Yeah. There's a beautiful law called the law of wisdom. And the law of wisdom states if you approach everything in life to gain a lesson or to gain a gift, you never lose. And so there's two important questions that I program to ask my brain in moments of trials and challenges and tribulations. The first one, what's the gift? And the second one is, who am I going to become because I'm going through this? Mm-hmm. And the truth is that if you can find enough gifts and find enough learnings, you never lose, you only win or learn. And so it's a cheat code, because regardless of what happens in your life, you can always find the gift and you can always find the learning and liberate yourself from the event. Every single thing that's going to happen in our life has a gift, but sometimes humans aren't ready for the gift because they want to stay in the poopy diaper. But understand that the gift is always available for you when you want the gift. And so if we can walk through life or hop through life and approach life and always trying to find the gift and finding the learning, everything is a blessing. Everything's a win. And so that's the way that I want to walk through life, is always trying to find the gift and always trying to find the learning.
I'm loving the poopy diaper example. I'm definitely using that from now on.
Yeah, most people are always in their poopy diaper.
Yeah.
They don't even know it because they've been in the diaper so long.
Yeah. Time to throw it away. You mentioned something that really resonates. And I know I have a lot of my audience who are immigrants in, United States, Canada, the Western world. And I've mentioned this on numerous occasions. And that's something that's been motivating me a lot, actually. Whenever I'm like, oh, should I do this? This is kind of scary. I don't know. I think to myself, I worked so hard to have the freedom that I have today. Like I always said, my Canadian passport is the greatest achievement of my life. I have questions regarding where that country is headed right now, but it's the greatest achievement of my life. It gave me freedom.
Yeah.
And I remember listening to Jim Rohn. I know Tony Robbins is a huge fan of his, and they work together. He had this speech. I don't remember when and where it was, but he was mentioning about how whenever you tell yourself something is hard, remember that you are in United States of America. It's not hard. It really isn't hard. Bangladesh is hard. So many places in the world right now are really hard. This isn't hard.
Yeah.
It's what you're experiencing right now and what you think is a problem really isn't a problem. And I think if more people thought of it that way and it's almost like you're approaching it from a place of gratitude, right? It's like, hey, hold on a minute. I have a blessing to have this as a problem.
Yes.
Other people have other problems that are a lot bigger, life or death situations, even in some cases.
Yeah.
So it's like it's this gratitude approach. And let me know your thoughts on gratitude and how important is it, and how many times a day do you practice it?
Yeah, this is great. One of my favorite teachers is Joe Dispenza, Dr. Joe. And understanding that gratitude is the ultimate state of receivership, meaning that you can have all the amazing blessings and all the amazing gifts comes into your life, but if you're not in a state of gratitude, you can't fully receive the full blessing, right? And so I believe that gratitude, the emotional state, is a magnet for all of the things that you want. Talking about the brain is the antenna, the heart is the magnet. So the more that you can be heart-centered and full of gratitude and joy, you attract the things that you want into your life. And the more that you're in a suffering, poopy diaper, the more poopy things that you attract into your life. And so I don't think gratitude is something we should like practice here and there. I think it should be a place that we learn to live in.
Like a default almost.
Yeah, like a default, which is a worthy opponent, right? It's like very difficult, but I think it's a muscle, and just like any muscle, if you don't use it, you lose it. And so I think the more that you can be in a grateful state, in a heart-centered state, that's where the magic starts to happen. And that's been my intention over the past even just 90 days is as a man, how can I get out of my head and into my heart more and serve from that place? Because all the beautiful things happen. And the more that you can be in a grateful state, which is almost like a state of wholeness, if you're fully whole, you're not missing anything, right? Like how can you miss anything if you're fully whole? It doesn't matter what the money in your bank account looks like or what your house looks like. If you are whole internally, nothing's ever missing. And so I think gratitude is a superpower because it allows you to love where you're at, but not thinking you're missing anything. You should be further ahead by now. So I think it's a magical place to be in. And I think, again, evidence-wise, most people aren't surrounded by people who are in this beautiful state and they're full of gratitude. So they just think it's a fairy tale. But There are people out there who are in beautiful states more than they are in suffering states. And there's magic happening for those people because the universe loves grateful people.
How do you balance being grateful for what you have and then also striving for more?
Well, can you be grateful for something that hasn't even happened yet?
Yeah.
You can, right? And so if nothing's truly missing, you already have the thing, time hasn't caught up yet.
I like it.
I already got the Lambo, just time hasn't caught up yet. $1 million is there, just time hasn't caught up yet, right? Is time real? Time's not even real. That's a whole nother rabbit hole, right? But like, it's not, right? Time is just, who knows? We're just in the present moment. And so I think you can be grateful for things that haven't even happened yet. And if you can anchor those moments, they come into your life more. But also, want things, have things to strive for, have materialistic things to strive for, have experiences that you can strive for, but understand that oftentimes the reason why we want things is not to acquire the thing. We just want how the thing's going to make us feel.
Right.
So what if I can feel the emotion already before I even have it? Then I can draw it way closer into my 3D world.
So how do you get into that state of being an owner of a Lambo, for example?
How do you get into that state? Well, so there's a nerdy process called, the nerdy term is called neuron mirroring. And basically it's visualization. But the brain cannot decipher what's real and what's visualized. It's never left your skull. Has no idea, right? So that's why you can visualize something and feel the emotion in the present moment. And so if you wanted to step into the identity of someone who, drove a Lamborghini, you wanted to feel it, I would get into a meditative state or a visualization state where you're like, you can smell the leather.
Identify
right?
yourself as a Lambo.
Yeah,
I'm
right.
now a Lambo owner.
Yeah, right. Or I can feel the leather. I can touch the steering wheel. I can feel it. Or what's even better than a vision board is go actually touch the car. Right? Go look at them. Like even all the time, me and my boys, it's like, you guys want to go to the exotic dealership and just like touch the cars? Like we love cars. It's like, why not? It's a pull for us, right? Exactly. So, but also,
you'll never hear a girl be like, let's go touch the cars.
Yeah, right. But go touch it, go feel it. But also, go break down the numbers. Go have fun. How much would I need to put down a down payment? What is that? How much money do I need to pay a month? What do I need to make in a day? Once you start chunking down the numbers, your brain realizes it's way more tangible than you think it is. The biggest problem humans have is they put the vision of what they want so far away from themselves that they think it's just years ahead, when in reality, you can wake up tomorrow and start embodying that person, right? There is a process. Have you heard of be, do, have? Right? So be, do, have. Most humans are backwards. They want to have the thing, and what do I need to do in order to achieve the thing? Versus who do I need to become in order to have everything that I want to have? And so this game, the human experience, is a game of being, embodying the identity, right? So someone who owns a Lambo, what kind of habits do they have? What kind of skill sets do they have? What do they do on a day-to-day basis? What does their day look like? Are they going to the gym? Are they studying? Are they acquiring high income skill sets? Like, what are they doing? Success leaves clues. And so if you can identify the characteristics and the habits and the rituals of someone who is a high level individual, start walking in alignment with those actions. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Right?
I've been identifying as a wife of a billionaire my whole life. No, just kidding.
I like it.
Yeah. What do you need to like how do those people act, right? Like people who own a lamb or people who have what you want to have. What do they do? Like we were talking about that earlier. Get inspired by that.
Yeah.
Like learn what they do, maybe the habits that they have, even how they speak sometimes. I'm not saying you need to copy them, but just there's a certain level of like energy that they vibrate at.
Yeah.
Yeah, vibrate at that energy.
Yeah,
that makes perfect sense.
But study them, right?
Yeah.
It's like you really want to condense time, find someone who has the life you have and just obsess and learn everything about them. How do they move? How do they operate? You know, even to this day, like, okay, I'm at millionaire status, but when I'm around a multimillionaire or someone who's worth hundreds of millions of dollars, I'm not talking. I'm listening and I'm studying the way that they conduct themselves and the way they make calls and the way that their schedule is. Like I'm learning from them so I can go faster.
Right.
Yeah.
So 2 questions out of this, but well, one actually is more of a comment. We were talking about numbers. This is something very interesting because so my husband and I, a couple of years ago, we were obviously wanting to like change our life. We were very, corporate, both of us. And when we were envisioning the lifestyle that we're living now, we thought we were going to have to be multimillionaires to live it. And then I can't remember who, but we were listening to somebody and they said like break down the numbers, what you would need, what you want on like a monthly basis. Break down the numbers and you will realize in like 99% of the cases that you need a lot less than that.
Yeah.
And, we looked at each other the other day and we're like, hey, like we never needed tens of millions of dollars to live this lifestyle actually. And we were sort of lying to ourselves in a way that we were putting it exactly like you said, too far away from us, like out of reach.
Yes.
When in fact we could have just broken down the numbers right away and had it a lot faster. So is that something you recommend people do? If somebody's like wanting, a certain lifestyle right now, to sit down and break down the numbers? And where do you differentiate between, okay, maybe this is a little bit unrealistic right now. Like, maybe I'm not going to have a yacht and a mansion in Miami right away. Yeah. But I want a specific type of lifestyle. So I'm going to sit down and break down these numbers and see how much it'll cost.
Yeah, that's a great question. So yeah, 100% agree. Like breaking down numbers based on what you want and where you want to live and how you want to live. But also, I believe in healthy pressure. Mm-hmm. And I guess people would have to identify what healthy pressure is for them. But I was just saying this on the way here. I work best like when I leverage myself. For example, like the house that I moved into, I didn't know how we were going to move into it. Mm-hmm. Like I committed to it and then we found a way. And so humans, when they're back against the wall, they either die or they'll thrive. And most of you are going to thrive. You're not going to die. You're going to figure it out, right? And so that's what I'd say is break down the numbers and ask myself, okay, based on my situation, what's some healthy pressure that I can add that will like get me to keep pushing and spark some urgency and some drive in me? Because I feel like when we get too comfortable, there's no urgency, there's no drive. So it's like, where in my life can I add some healthy pressure that will make me move into action faster than if I was just comfortable? Mm-hmm. I'm a big believer in getting some leverage and committing to things. But I also believe like my aggressive side wants to say like, whatever you commit to, if you commit to it, and if I were to tell you like, hey, like if you don't make this amount of money in 30 days, I'm going to kill your kid, you'd find the money.
Yeah.
You find it, you figure it out, right? That's the aggressive Nick, right?
Right.
But so I would say break down the numbers, see what is tangible. Also, can you get into proximity with someone who's already living that life so you can get some more details and more evidence and more inspiration and more guidance? And then also ask myself, where in my life can I add and apply healthy pressure that will not break me, but will push me into a next level for me?
Mm-hmm. So accountability is obviously huge. Do you recommend everybody gets a mentor, a coach? And how do you find the right coach or a mentor?
Yeah, I would say if your coach doesn't have a coach, you need a new coach.
Okay.
So everybody should have a coach. And going back, I would make sure that the coach has the life and the results that you want, right? So, for example, if you're someone who wants to get into a harmonious relationship as a heart-centered man, I go find a heart-centered man who's in a harmonious relationship and get in proximity to them, right? If I always say, if you want to build big legs in the gym, don't come to Nick because he doesn't have that program, right? And so making sure that I would say they have the life and the results that you want and their values are in alignment with yours, right? Because there's a lot of people out there that may have the life but aren't in alignment with your values. So that's what I would say. I look for, they have the results and they have the life that I have, and what are their values and how do they operate as a human being? And if they're in alignment, what can I do to get in proximity? And even if I can't pay to get in proximity, how can I learn and consume their free content? But we live in a day and age where you can pull up any social media and learn from people who have the life and the results that you want. It's the most brilliant time we can ever live in. So exercise that. Your mentors could be in books. Your mentors could be in podcasts. Your mentors could be in YouTube videos. Your mentors could be your pastor in the church, right? There's mentors all around you if you're looking for them. They're all around you.
So you don't even necessarily have to have someone like personally. You can just maintain sort of a listen to a book or listen to their work. You don't necessarily have to have the person like in your life.
No, that's a bonus. But with this day and age, yeah, you don't need to have them right in your life. You can just listen to their books and their podcasts and their interviews and pick up from that way. And of course, everybody's got programs and courses. So for those that you align with, like, go deeper in their journey. Go deeper with their products, their services, their courses. I am the only reason why I'm at this level at 27 is because
You're 27?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing.
I've found mentors who turned around and condensed time for me, right? Like, and that's what, like, successful people understand, that we're in the business of condensing time. So who has the results and how can I get the information to go further faster?
Yeah.
Because time is ticking.
Right. There's got to be like that healthy sense of urgency.
Yeah.
Not like, put pressure on, I guess, maybe like the laws of the universe to deliver or God to deliver, but on yourself a little bit. Like, okay, let's do this. Let's not wait any longer.
100%. I would say one of the biggest shifts for me was realizing I want to have intention and I want to have targets, but I'm not going to try to control the outcome. Because every single time that I try to control the outcome in this experience, I am blocking the mystical and the magical experience from happening. So the only thing that I can control in this world is my input. And if input equals output, I'm just going to control what I can input and put the energy in and let the chips land where they land. I'm going to totally detach from it. But oftentimes we're always trying to control this human experience, and it's so silly because you have a plan, but your creator's got a different plan for you. So just control your input, detach from the outcome, and let the magic happen. And the more that you can detach from the outcome and just surrender and let the chips fall where they fall, you'll experience the magic and you won't want the magic to stop.
So how do you detach from the outcome if everybody says when you set a goal or set an intention or you want to achieve something, just think about the outcome. Like, don't think how you're going to get there. Just think about the outcome.
So you're asking, ask again?
Say I'm setting a goal. When they talk about, and by they I mean like, just all the things that you listen to, motivation and self-development. When you set a goal, they say you are supposed to only think about the end result. So technically the outcome, right? How do you reconcile, or how do you, I guess, in your view, how do you balance that? Like, you reach for a goal, or you write down your goal, or you set a goal, and you're thinking about the end result, and then you course correct as necessary.
Agreed. So you can have a goal and have a target and think about the end result, and you could build a plan, but also surrender to the fact that it may not go the way that you want it to go.
Okay.
And to not beat yourself up for not executing the plan perfectly, right? There's going to be ups, there's going to be downs, there's going to be pivot, like being able to ebb and flow.
Right.
And also understanding two things. The first thing is you set a target and you fall short, at least you're probably way ahead versus if you didn't set a target. But the other thing, which is one of the most powerful beliefs that we can adopt, is regardless of whether you hit the goal, whether you hit the target, whether there is disruption, that everything in your life is either working on you or working for you, but it's always working. So you never lose again, right? And so you may not hit the target, but you became a greater version of self. You may not hit the target, but you learned a lot. You may not hit the target, but you're way further ahead if you set a lower target or you didn't try at all. And so have a target, have intention, focus on the end in mind. But if you don't hit it, it's okay.
Right.
You're not a failure, right? You're not a bad person. You didn't lose. But be open to the plan not going the way that you want it to go, because oftentimes our dreams and our goals and our visions manifest in ways that we never thought it would happen that way. right? You met people, you achieved things in ways that you thought it was going to go a specific way, but the creator took it a totally different way and you still got the same outcome.
I like that. I heard this phrase by Wayne Dyer once. You will love it. Maybe you heard it too. It's like, be a mind that's open to everything and attached to nothing.
Exactly.
And then also, you mentioned don't be too attached to this outcome, because do you find that a lot of times people don't even go for it because they've already made up their mind that the outcome is just, it's going to be,
100%, right? It's going back to the fear thing. It's like undesirable outcomes. It's like you don't start because you already painted the picture in your head that it's going to fail. My mentor gave me a great example. People hear like, oh, I have writer's block, right? You don't have writer's block. You just don't think the book's going to sell when you finish it. But if I were to tell you, hey, you're going to write a book and it's going to be a New York Times bestseller and you're going to save millions of lives, how fast would you write the book?
Yeah.
You'd write it way faster because you're giving energy towards a desirable outcome versus an undesirable outcome. And so that's another pattern that people can be conscious of, is catch yourself when you're painting the worst case scenario and already destroying your journey.
Rethink just like make a flip.
Yeah.
Like, what are those called in English? I don't even know what they're called in Russian, to be honest with you. There's like a moment that I reach where it's like none of the languages are working anymore. I have to, but the film, like when you, back in the day, like you would those pictures. You flip a picture and envision
a different slideshow, right?
Yeah, different slideshow.
Yeah.
You touched briefly on the subject, and I really want to, because everybody's so interested in it, because people are so confused, especially I find in this part of the world. You touched briefly on masculinity. How do you balance, obviously, having that healthy aggression and what traditionally is considered to be like very masculine characteristics, with also being in your heart and in tune with your emotions?
That's a great question. And to let the audience know, this is like fairly new for me. This whole path of heart-centeredness and grounded masculinity, right? So I'm not going to claim I'm an expert. I'll just share from my experiences. Because of my past relationship, I realized that I was very head-centered, and it was all business, and it was all like go, go, go. And the person that you bring to business, you can't bring to the bed. You can't bring to the relationship. But also, I'm at the point where I realize that the heart has the intelligence of its own, and the heart always knows. But as men, we're not programmed to be in our heart. We're designed to be a man and don't deal with it and just keep pushing and keep grinding, and it's not sustainable. And so I think there's a time and place to be dangerous as a man, and then there's a time and place to be heart-centered. And so I think for me, in like day-to-day combat of business, it's like aggression, and it's masculine, and it's pushing, and it's driving. But also when it comes to planning and envisioning and loving what we've created so far, it's like coming back to that grounded place and be like, yo, I'm enough. Like regardless of whether I make more, like I did it, like love myself. Right. And so I think heart-centered men are the most dangerous men in a great way, because they're grounded, they're heart-centered, and they can flip the switch of being like aggressive and direct. But they also have this compassionate, centered side where they can tap into their emotions. They can have deep, meaningful conversations. They're not in protection, they're in learning, and they're also able to work through the things that they've been bottling up because someone told them to be a man and not heal it, right? And so I don't know if I know the balance. I think I'm still trying to find the balance, but all I know is I am a better leader, a better brother, a better son, a better communicator when I am in my heart and not in my head trying to push through the 3D world with my muscles, right? It's like I believe that there is a balance, and there's a time and a place to be aggressive and direct and forceful, and there's a time and a place to be heart-centered and grounded. I don't know the balance. I'd be lying if I told you I knew what I was doing. But I just know before I go on podcasts like this, or before I go on stage, or before I speak to my team, I need to make sure that I'm in a heart-centered, grounded place, because that's the way that I'm going to move my people. I don't lead from fear. I lead from love. I don't lead from fear and aggression. I lead from heart-centeredness and building people up and painting a compelling vision for their life. And so I'm not everybody's cup of tea. you know, and I think there's been a lot of evolutions of Nick. If you go back into my older content, there's plenty of content of me dropping F-bombs and muscling through it and being a specific thing. And I think the beautiful thing, I was saying this on the way here, the beautiful thing about being lost is on the other side of lost is found. And I've spent a lot of time lost trying to find myself, and I'm still finding myself. And so I don't know if I've even answered the question in a direct way, but if we can get more men tapped into their heart, they will experience a level of intelligence and wisdom that they'd never experienced before, because the heart knows it all.
You hear a lot of messages of when men go down the path of more of like an emotional, not even necessarily emotional, but going into their heart, they flip over too much on that side and become almost too feminine.
Yeah.
Are you ever afraid of that? And how, in your mind right now, I know you said you're still kind of, you know, working through it. In your mind, how would you balance that?
Outstanding question. I can still be heart-centered, but I have to stay decisive and have to stay leading, right? So if I'm with the girl, right, I'm going to be heart-centered, but like, this is where we're going to dinner and this is what you should wear and make sure you're wearing this just in case we do something, and I'm still leading from the front. And so it's one thing to be heart-centered and be like, no, what do you want to eat, babe? It's no, don't go too feminine now, right? So I think heart-centered and compassion, but staying in the masculine of like, I'm a leader, I'm decisive, I have the plan, you're protected, you're safe, I can hold space, and this is the way that's going to go, and I'm going to lead and you follow me, right? So I think you can still be heart-centered, but you can still be decisive and lead from the front.
So
does that help?
You don't believe men and women should be splitting bills at restaurants?
Say it again?
You don't believe men and women should be splitting bills at restaurants on first dates?
No, I don't agree. No, I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that. I think too. By the way, let's both sides of the spectrum. Both sides of the spectrum here. We're loosening up the conversation here. Both sides of the spectrum here. I think there's a lot of masculine women.
Yeah.
And if the woman's in the masculine, the man can't. It doesn't work, right? If a masculine man and a masculine woman, it's just going to be a battle of the protection, right?
Yes.
And so the woman needs to be in the woman needs to be in the feminine to allow the man to stay in the masculine. But then you have I wouldn't say toxic, but you have immature masculine men versus mature masculine men, and then you have immature feminine versus mature feminine women. We got this whole thing going on in this dynamic of the world.
I know,
right?
It's really like
there's a lot there. So no, I think men should lead from the front and carry the bill. I think men should let the ladies know we're going here at this time, plan it out. Don't ask them what they want to eat. Show them where we're going. Like it needs to be very decisive, and you need to lead from a heart-centered place.
Yes.
Right. And so I think there's a balance, and men and women are doing our best to figure out what the hell we're doing and try to find that balance. Right.
Of course. I had to ask you that because a lot of I do a lot of comedy, and a lot of because back where I come from, like that's not even an option. Like the guy always covers the bill. Yeah. And then whenever I talk about it, I get so much backlash, and it's always so funny to me. So I was like, okay, we need to touch on the subject because people will enjoy it.
Yeah. But there's also a flip side too of sometimes we don't allow people to pay for the bill, and we're robbing them of the opportunity to serve us. So who knows what the balance is, but I think in that dynamic of like a intimate men just like step up. Like I don't even have legs, I'm the one stepping up, right? It's like, men, you got to step up, you got to lead, you got to take care of the ladies. And by the way, let's just take it here. You shouldn't even be taking and investing any energy in women if you can't even take care of yourself and pick up a bill. I don't even think you're ready for it yet, right? Like oftentimes we're trying to get into a relationship when we haven't even built an amazing relationship with ourselves. Like, what are we doing? I think we're backwards. And that's because we think that the girl or the woman is going to fill the void. But your life should already be amazing, and the woman is just additional, just the cherry on top, right? And so I think most men are investing in women when they should really be investing in them becoming a man and being able to be a provider so they can show up in a greater way for the woman.
Do you believe that if you have that balance of healthy masculine energy in a relationship, even if the woman is like very masculine, maybe, I don't know if naturally or not, whichever way it happened, but she's in her masculine most of the time, do you believe that a masculine guy can bring it out in her, like that feminine soft side?
I agree.
Do you think it's the responsibility of the man, or?
I agree.
Yeah.
I think with a grounded masculine man, you can create a safe container for the woman to feel safe to step into the feminine. Because oftentimes there's a lot of masculine women. It's just the way that they were brought up, their belief system, all this different type of stuff, and they maybe have never felt safe enough to drop into the feminine, or hey, maybe it's new for them. And so if you can do things or create a container to allow them to drop into the feminine, the more they feel it, the more they're going to want to stay in the feminine, right? Like women don't want to stay in masculine. It's just maybe all they know. But the moment that they taste their feminine side, they're going to be like, I'd rather operate out of my feminine versus this masculine stuff. But then again, if you're in a relationship where the dude is beta or the dude is feminine, it's like the only way they know is to be the masculine and provide, right? There's a lot of women taking care of the men in all different areas, and I think that's all they know, right? So I think if a masculine woman meets a grounded, heart-centered masculine man with enough persistence and a nice container, she will find herself melting into the feminine. And if she doesn't, there'll just be turmoil. Yeah. You know?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And so my husband, he's a very masculine guy, and he's very, in tune with his heart, very like amazing. We have a really beautiful relationship. And I do find that sometimes when I'm a little too, like go, and I can't switch it off, he, in a very nice way, just kind of brings it out in me. Like very, I guess, firm and assertive, but he will bring it out in me, you know, and I'll be like, oh, okay, I just need to relax, Yeah. I just need to stop being this, this masculine figure. Like there's absolutely no need for that. And if for whatever reason I don't, exactly, like we butt heads, because he's not going to back down. He's like, no. This is, I'm protecting here and I'm providing. You need to be you. You need to, soften up, kind of thing. Yeah.
But 100%. But if he wasn't strong, your masculine would outweigh it, and he would drop down to feminine unconsciously. He would just start people pleasing or not leading, and he would just be like, "What do you think, babe?" Like it would totally flip, right? But that's not him. No. But I'm saying there's a lot of scenarios where we're not educated. We weren't taught in school. Here's a masculine and feminine. No one teaches this, right? And then you go out in the real world, right? There's no manual. So if you have a relationship where the girl is masculine, and the dude's not educated, like it's only right for him to like drop it. He doesn't know. He's like, oh, homegirl's leading. We'll just let her go. Like they don't know. We only know what we know, right? That's why we have to have compassion with people. It's like we want people to be at the next level, but they weren't exposed to the information. They don't know. Help them, show them, guide them, share your story, educate them, right? You can't expect everybody to be like you if we haven't given them the information, right? So, but I definitely agree. There should be more education on masculine and feminine so we can get back to men being heart-centered masculine and girls in their feminine. Then their flow. But I also think same thing for you. I think there's a time and a place where you be your masculine, right? When you're leading as a woman and you're in the field, and then but when you come home, it's gotta be a different you, right? You got to drop down into the feminine.
Yeah, absolutely. You're right, Nick. Thank you so much. This was amazing.
You're welcome.
I really appreciate your time and for coming on my podcast. I almost don't want time to go by so fast, in these cases, but I really appreciate it.
It was outstanding. And I'll say this, congratulations on everything that you built, and you sharing your story and being a vessel for change is not easy. And there's a lot of people that you have impacted that you have no idea that you've impacted. And this was all by you sharing and speaking up regardless of the different language barriers and all the different things. You show people what's possible when you truly want something and you have a desire to serve. So thank you for your work.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you saying that. There was one time I went to the seminar, saw you speak, and then 180, just like a total flip. So you took part in that.
Let's go.
Thank you so much.
You got it.
And thank you so much to our wonderful listeners for tuning into this episode. I know for a fact that you all feel a lot more motivated than you did before you started this. And I'll see you next week.